Previously on the super high roller cash game, Andrew Robl came in and quickly began dominating the table.
Wow, Robl car.
Coming in hot, huh?
And Aussie Matt Kirk was never out of the action. He folded pocket queens to Scott Seiver.
The Scott Seiver show.
And doubled through Doug Polk after running it 4 times.
We'll go 4. Can we get 1 spade? No, we cannot.
I would like to thank the whole table for being on my side and sweating me there.
The super high roller cash game continues right now.
Let's deal some cards.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Aria Resort and Casino in Las Vegas for the super high roller cash game. I'm AJ Benza with poker pro Nick Shulman, and down to the table is the same group of players we've seen for the last couple of episodes. Scott Seiver has been holding court, Doug Polk has been running bad, and Andrew Robl has the biggest stack.
So Doc Sands got voted off the island.
Yep.
It's like Survivor.
I don't think it was a vote.
We all cast our ballots.
Doc voted us off the island.
Yeah, basically Doc voted
We just got
us
voted off the island. But now it's kind of awkward because like a lot of us did at the same time, and now we have to hang out with each other.
Wait. Wait, Matt is not coming back either?
Matt Kirk is coming back, don't you worry at all. His stack is still in seat 8 with almost 300 grand. Seat 2 is empty, as you've heard. Doc Sands is no longer with us, but we should be getting a new player any minute, and that gentleman will have nearly $1.5 million directly to his right in the possession of Andrew Robl. Blinds in this game still $400 and $800 with a $200 ante. And these guys have decided to have the big blind post antes for the table.
Yeah, and I like that. It tends to speed the game up a little. When each player antes for themselves, sometimes the dealer has to chase them down for their ante, whether they're texting or playing lot and thinks, wandering around the room, screaming at each other, giggling.
Yep.
Nice when one player can just ante for everybody.
Big slick for Trickett. And 3 bets to 13,000. Paul Newey, 2 queens in the big blind.
And I think Newey is going to re-raise Trickett. He'd love to get Polk out and take it heads up to the flop.
What is this sweatshirt?
I don't know.
Sus.
Romani.
I guess there's some hoodie envy going on around the table.
Yeah, Colman intrigued with Robl's fashion choices, and Robl nonchalantly realizes, yeah, that $500, this whole thing.
Yeah.
Some Brit on Brit violence.
This is like the Revolutionary War right here.
I have 3 wrists to my left. It's brutal.
So were both your parents born in it?
Well, my mom is British. My dad is American, but you know,
And Trickett will take a flop.
I could if I wanted to, but I would still pay U.S. tax.
4 deuce king. Spikes Trickett just right. He checks.
I still expect Newey to bet here. He could get called by worse, and
25,000.
I like this bet from Newey here. Even though he sees a king, he doesn't have to automatically assume that Trickett has one. He could easily have the best hand.
Trickett's playing it slow. 7 on the turn is no help to Newey.
And Trickett hasn't checked. So he might be thinking about leading, and I love this bet, by the way, because Newey certainly would check behind, well, I shouldn't say certainly, but he would check behind a lot of the time with queens, jacks, 10s. But here he might get stubborn and call.
Yeah.
And this bet really doesn't make that much sense from Trickett. What is he representing? What's he supposed to have? I think this is a great bet by him. And it's easy to just check if you're in Trickett's sim. That's a great fold by Newey.
What did you have? Made absolutely no sense.
That's exactly what I was saying, Andrew.
Nothing makes any sense.
Was that 3-bet 4-bet then lead out?
No, you check called the flop. And
He had the winner.
Well, it made perfect sense to Sam Trickett, who's stacking a pot that could have been bigger if these guys went to war pre-flop. So far, we've seen ace-king run into queens a few times. The first was a pre-flop war between Phil Ivey and Matt Kirk. It turned into a $420,000 pot, which Kirk took every penny of. And more recently, it was Kirk with the queens against Scott Seiver's ace-king. And after Seiver made it $75,000 pre-flop, Kirk just called.
Guess I gotta finish what I started, all in.
Then got away from it on the river when Seiver put them all in. And just now we saw only 55,000 go into the pot pre-flop when Trickett had the ace-king against Newey's queens. And when a king hit the flop, Newey only lost one bet before getting away relatively cheap.
Every no-limit hold'em player has many, many memories of playing ace-king versus queens and vice versa. It's a classic confrontation. It's a hand that comes up a lot in no-limit tournaments. And as you can see in no-limit tournaments, generally players get all in pre-flop with that deep in the tournament. But in cash games, it can go a variety of different ways.
Right.
And we've seen a lot of those different ways unfold.
Meanwhile, Sam Trickett has opened the pot with deuces. And Paul Newey looks down at Queen Jack on the button.
If Polk is considering a 3-bet here, pre's elects to call. King 4 suited. Fine hand for Mr. Polk.
Now Robl watches three people jump into the pot in front of him, and he 3-bets to 18,500 with ace-6.
And for Trickett, he has deuces, but yeah, he's going to call here. And the thing is, if Polk had 3-bet, he might have elected to fold. But with Robl 3-betting, he could potentially win a $1 million pot here because Robl covers him.
8-9 queen is a whiff for Robl, and Sam's deuces are still ahead.
It's true, but it's kind of a whiff for Sam also because you're not exactly happy to see 8-9 queen with deuces. However, it is the best hand, and a flop like this, where both players don't have much of anything, position becomes very important.
And now we see our new player in seed 2. That's Finnish pro Patrik Antonius, a longtime superstar in both live and online cash games. He's sitting down with $250,000.
Play with Patrik all the time. Good buddy of mine, a fantastic player.
Smart guy. 23,000.
And Trickett does use his position to his advantage and takes it down.
Robl mucks his ace high.
What's up, Patrick? Welcome.
This is 250.
All the money is Robl's money. It's just who's borrowing it for how long. At the end of the day, it's all going to seat 1. I'm just hoping I get to watch a replay of one of my all-time favorite televised poker hands now.
Me too. Me too.
A lot of people don't know this about Patrik, but he's actually very funny.
Yeah.
What is it?
Players are discussing a famous pot limit Omaha hand from a 2009 Aussie Millions cash game where Antonius and Robl played. A $262,000 pot where Antonius was a 3-1 favorite. They ran it 4 times, and Robl won all 4. He was less than 1% to do that, but he got it.
That was a truly sick hand, and I remember asking Patrik about that hand after. I was kind of making fun of him. I said I saw the hand, and Patrik said there was nothing weird about this hand, Nick. It is normal.
Oh, no, 14. Sorry, 14. I took this out.
I like Trickett's 3-bet here with 10-8 of diamonds.
Hopefully we see nicer hands this time.
Antonius looking down at his first hand, sees a Jack-6, and doesn't like it.
I already forgot how to play deep stack.
Deep stack.
And Colman makes the call with ace-queen of spades.
Now we play 40 big blind cap.
10-4 ace.
2 spades,
Yeah.
huge flop for Colman, and Trickett with a nice check back.
Jack on the turn.
Oh, yeah. I'm definitely going to go home and rewatch that hand between you guys.
Maybe
Oh
that
my
this
God.
is gonna stick it to
Actually,
you guys.
given that hand, we should probably switch to PLO, actually. I forgot that Andrew can play hands like that.
Half and half doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt.
Coleman bets 20 grand.
Except when it does.
Trickett will fold here,
Yeah, I saw it.
Oh, my God.
although he could have
So
something
good.
else in mind.
Nice.
He certainly could still be good, but
Sure.
it's hard to play this hand comfortably. If you call here, do you simply pay off brick rivers? And
Definitely.
if Colman has something like he had, Trickett was in
Deal
awful
was
shape.
that I would never say anything
Yep.
like that normally,
fold.
and somehow I said, and
Yeah,
I
Patrick
just
would never say a word during a hand
the
ever.
karma just took me.
It's the Super High Roller Cash Game presented by DraftKings. Patrik Antonius is a familiar face to many poker fans, including JRB, who sounds off about the handsome Finn in this edition of the Jean Robert Report.
Patrik Antonius is one of the guys that when I first started playing poker, I really looked up to. I mean, even though he was a young kid, he was just crushing it. And, you know, you got this really good-looking guy. You know, all the girls, you know, were wooing over him, whatever. And, you know, he's got that Finnish accent, which is kind of cool. I mean, he's one of the guys that, you know, the guy's like, dang, you know, what's that guy's got going on? His wife is gorgeous, kids are gorgeous. I mean, it's unreal. And I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, he just comes out on top whenever he's at a poker table.
It's a lot of love from JRB.
It is. Patrik is one of my favorite players as well. He's a fantastic player.
Reminds me of Brad Pitt in Fight Club.
I once saw Patrik scoop like an $800,000 pot. Then he just looked over at somebody and winked and said, poker is all timing and tempo.
The kind of guy just take your wife away from you in a minute.
Well,
don't stare at Patrik too long, honey. Don't stare at him.
Yeah, take her away. She'll just decide to you know, go talk to him.
So Newey opened the pot with 5-3 hearts, and Polk flats behind with Queen 10. Robl on the button with Jack 9 suited, and looks like he's going to play 2. Yes.
Look at Seiver staring down the stack.
General Scott, is this a slow table or no?
What'd you say?
Slow table?
It actually hadn't been, even though many people that I would expect to be slow. It's been not fast.
Jack 7-8. That's top pair and a gut shot for Robl and a gut shot for Polk.
Of course not. Not anymore.
Like you know.
I think we might see Polk bet into these two with his gut shot and overcard. Having a 10 blocks 9-10. And this is a good hand to have in your bluffing range. And he's drawing to the nuts.
Yeah, he bets his draw, 8,200.
Robl is going to continue. The question is call or raise. And
Look at this, Patrik.
It's a call.
Insta-call.
an insta-call it was.
I like the fast play. The fast play is tricky.
It's tricky.
4 of spades on the turn. Polk still with queen high.
Still with queen high indeed, and if he continues to bet here,
23-5.
Yes.
Robl has an interesting decision, and he does bet 23-5. This is close. Robl could consider folding this hand, but he could also call, and I love spots like this because, as we can see, he should call, but it's very close. And and the reason he could fold is because Doug could have him beat, could have him in very bad shape, in fact, the way the hand played. And he does get Robl off it. Great play,
nice
Doug
bluff,
Polk.
Yeah. A little raise of the brows from Doug as he stacks some chips that belong to Andrew, but Robl has plenty of these. Everything from the black 100 to the gray 100K. A colorful array of chips from Aria's Poker Room.
And a colorful shirt.
Yeah, that's for sure. Joining this hand in progress as Paul Newey has 6-3 of clubs in the big blind, and he calls after Polk and Seiver have entered the pot with pocket 10s and 8s, respectively.
Oh.
Seiver flops the nuts, top set.
And this could be very interesting because Polk and Seiver both have a lot of history playing with each other and are both very capable of doing a lot of different things. And what I mean by that is they can take hands that aren't great and put a lot of chips in the pot in a variety of situations. So whenever one of them has an overpair and another one has a set, a big pot is liable to ensue.
All right. Seiver is going to slow play here, just call.
And Newey's got a little gut shot and might be thinking of taking one off, trying to spike that 4. But the problem is if somebody has 6-7, that 4 is a disaster, and he does decide to lay down, and I think that's a good discipline fold.
Jack on the turn. Seiver still has the nuts.
He does. Well, 3 jacks would be. I mean, he has the nuts versus Polk.
Right.
And I think we're going to see Polk bet again here.
18-5.
And that bet makes a lot of sense because Polk feels like he's comfortably ahead of Seiver's calling range on the flop. Seiver could have 6-7, 7-9, ace-3, ace-4, 8-7 suited, a lot of different hands that tens are ahead of. And Polk is capable of bluffing this turn, of course, so his bet makes sense.
Seiver pounces, raising to 54,000.
And when Polk sees this, now he has a very interesting decision. And I don't think Polk can just simply fold this turn. I think we're going to see him call here. It's not that he's in love with the situation, but from a mathematical standpoint, he still is ahead of all of those hands that I had begun to name. And Seiver's capable of raising those hands, specifically if he had some diamonds along with those 6-7s, 7-9s, ace-3s. Those are the hands that Doug is hoping Seiver has.
River pairs the jack, giving Scott a full house. Not that he needed it.
And now that the jack pairs the river, notice that Doug would now be ahead of 8-5, 5-deuce, and 8-deuce.
I'm all in.
He puts Polk all in.
Yes, he does. Now Doug has some calculations to make because as I was expounding upon before, Doug wants Seiver to have a wide variety of draws. Those draws are 6-7, 6-9, 7-9, 3-4, ace-3, ace-4, and with Seiver raising the turn, maybe you can take all those hands I named and add some diamonds along with it. But the point is, we don't know exactly what Seiver would raise the turn with, nor do we know if he would follow up and bluff all in on the river, or would he simply check, and what percentage of the time. So it's impossible to play perfectly here. You have to take all your knowledge, make your deductions.
Yeah, I don't have to call this. All right. Nice
and make a decision, and that's a great fold.
Good fold, yeah.
Oh, you're officially the boss of the table, Scott. You're the table boss today. If you show a bluff, you're like a super boss.
Show us. Damn.
It's okay, Scott. I know what you had.
Robl may know, but Seiver isn't saying a thing, and that leaves Doug Polk wondering. Don't worry, Doug. Nice laydown, brother. Las Vegas, Nevada, home of the Super High Roller Cash Game presented by Dollar Shave Club. Back to the table, and Scott Seiver, fresh off his set of eights versus Polk, is going to raise here with Jack-3 of spades. Newey on the button with Jack-9 suited.
And yeah, I like this 3-bet. I think this is a good spot to 3-bet. Seiver's opening a lot of hands. You're in position. And I like Newey's play. I may have 3-bet a bit bigger, though, given how deep they are, and you kind of want to charge a hand like this a touch more, but it's fine.
Flop comes queen, 8-9, 2 spades. That's a flush draw and a gut shot for Seiver. But Newey still leads with the same gut shot and middle pair.
That he does, and Seiver has a decision here. Does he call or does he raise? And looks like he's going to call.
Jack on the turn means 2 pair for Newey and a pair and a flush draw for Seiver.
Yeah, and Newey could bet here, and he could also check. I would lean towards checking. I like it because it pot controls when you're beat, which he could easily be, and when you're not, Seiver may start bluffing the river, and you have a bluff catcher.
Deuce is a brick for Scott.
Of course, Seiver having jacks, he may just check and hope to show down his pair of jacks. If he bets here, he's likely to only be called really by better, and better probably will call him. Maybe he could bluff out a pair of queens, like something like Queen King, but maybe not.
That's 20,000.
But now he has an opportunity to maybe put a big check raise in, because if you notice, Newey's range here is a little bit what we call capped, meaning that it's hard for him to have a straight because he checked the turn.
All right.
Ooh.
Seiver is not a believer.
I would have much preferred to see Seiver make it like 90,000. I think that works so often.
You're a beast, Paul. You're a beast. You're a new man today. You're playing every hand, making thin value bets, bobbing and weaving, taking on the table boss.
He's got to lose a hand
I
sometime.
was so close to check raising, and I'm like, whatever, I'll call. Should have just raised and seen what happened.
Yeah.
Very close to raising, Paul. I just had too good a hand, though. Couldn't do it.
All smiles for Newey, who does have great respect for Scott Seiver.
I like Scott Seiver. I think he's, possibly the best tournament player out on the circuit at the moment, and I find he's a very interesting character, and I find him funny. So yeah, I've got a lot of admiration for Scott.
I managed to time it perfectly to lose the maximum.
This hand is underway, and Newey has been dealt out, having taken a short break.
I took a short break to discuss his admiration for Seiver. He admired that $20,000 that Seiver paid him off last hand,
Exactly.
There's a nice Armani hoodie of Robl.
Red Kings for Doug. Robl, Ace Queen.
And I think we're going to see Robl 3-bet Doug here.
You are correct. 9,000. Falls back to Polk.
And Doug could call, but I think he's going to 4-bet here more often than call. Calling is fine. But considering that he 4-bets with real bad hands, he should be 4-betting with real good hands.
He raises to 22,500. He started the hand with 126,000, or about 9% of what Robl has.
When you put it like that.
Right?
Come on.
There he goes.
Whoa.
How about that?
Well, you remember, AJ, I was questioning some of Polk's pre-flop raises.
Earn a good price.
Whatever you want.
Cool. That price is good.
Re-raising a lot with some pretty bad hands, but look at what he's done now. He's earned this situation, and Andrew really took a stand and just said, enough is enough.
And they're going to run it twice. Queen 85 on the first flop gives Robl some help.
And there it is.
Oh.
And you wouldn't know it by looking at either one of them.
Wow. Polk now with 2 outs.
Oh my
God. That was a fun one. Robl looks ready to kill somebody. Although he looked that way when he hit the queen as well. So hard to read.
The thing is, all the aces are live, though, so it's like...
Big dramatic win in the first flop. 5-10-4. Not so much drama here. Robl still looking for an ace or running straight cards. 5 on the turn, no help. And Polk just has to dodge an ace.
Fade 1 spot.
And he does. It's a nice double up for Doug Polk, who wins both runs and the $255,000 pot.
Sure is.
Ace Queen against Kings didn't look too scary for Polk, but after Robl tripped up on the turn, he needed a magical king on the river to leave Robl dumbstruck. We're at Aria, and you're at home watching the Super High Roller Cash Game presented by Amazon App Store.
Been told to come
Aussie Matt
action.
back in the building.
You have very good negotiating tactics.
And he's one of 3 players stuck 6 figures now, while almost all the profits are sitting in the stack of Scott Seiver. Paul Newey starting his hand off, hoping to get unstuck with ace-jack offsuit. You know Kirk is definitely back as we see a call. Queen 9.
Let's go.
The Aussie has returned.
And Colman's going to play. Seiver's
I'm actually
in.
not stuck that much, though, personally, because originally Sam had 500 of me.
Yeah, cheers
So
for
he
that,
lost
buddy.
43 and a half.
And
Thanks very much.
Trickett defends his big blind with a couple of boats, Nick.
Yeah, and of course, one might be thinking that Seiver didn't have to get in there with that 10th. Whoa. I'm going to save that point for, this is quite a flop. Set over set.
Middle for Colman, bottom for Trickett.
Someone lost a big pot?
It wasn't that big.
I'm ready for
Are you a short? How'd you get so short?
Coleman proceeding with caution, elects to just call the flop, which I think is a good play.
Let me see your hands.
What'd you say?
Turn is the ace of hearts.
What I have.
That's interesting.
And I think we're going to see Trickett bet again into Dan most of the time.
You can bet with someone.
Yep.
And from there, now Dan has a real decision whether to call or raise. There's merits to both.
There were 2
If you know you're up against 3 4s, of course you would love to raise. But what if Trickett's betting again with a hand like Queen 8 suited,
Or at least one. At least.
or even Jack 10, not of diamonds? Just a very aggro play. You also want to leave him in there to potentially bluff rivers.
Wow, another 7 on the river. Quads for Colman, and Trickett now has a full house.
I think I'm now more tilted than you, Matt. This is not good for me in the game.
This is an absolute disaster for Trickett.
Yeah. Meanwhile, these guys are still chattering away at the side, and Trickett's involved in yet another serious pot.
It's true, you know, it seems like whenever Trickett is involved in a big pot on the river, the rest of the table seems to have the green light to just scream across the table.
Or yeah, anyone can be in. And it would be really good for the game, because whoever loses is going to be very tilted.
And it's so funny the things that steam him up, too.
And Trickett is about to be very tilted, too, because it's going to be really hard to get away from this hand for him. Because the way the hand played, Coleman can have so many draws, 9, 10, diamonds.
Well, now he's going to see how cold this deck was to him.
It's a really rough river for Trickett.
What happened on this hand?
Yeah, I was going to call like any amount.
Well, you also had much better hand than I thought you
The
would
way I
have.
played.
Yeah.
Do you have 4s? So brutal.
Colman is cool as he scoops that pot, and here's a guy who's been absolutely on fire lately. After winning the 2014 One Drop, as well as 3 Player of the Year awards, he's racked up 3 more 7-figure tournament wins, as well as a $950,000 win. Sounds like he's doing a little better now than he did as a dishwasher, right?
He's had one of the best years in poker history. I don't really know the numbers statistically, but it's got to be up there with one of the greatest years in no-limit tournament history. Wow. And I used to play, actually, quite a bit with him online years ago, and he was great then, and he's probably even better now.
Robl in the big blind has Queen 5 of diamonds. What's he up to here?
Well, it looks like he might be up to something, but one would think that he would simply fold. But whenever Matt Kirk is involved...
What do you have, Matt? You have like 300?
3, yeah.
There's both the potential for big action and the potential for Kirk to have a weak hand.
How about a 4-bet to 50,000? Everybody else falls to Matt Kirk.
Queen 5 suited isn't the hand you necessarily expect to see when you're looking at a cold 4-bet to 50,000. But I got to tell you, AJ, I kind of like it.
Yeah.
And I'm very curious to...
And he 5-bets to 100,000.
Well, I'm curious no more. I have my answer. Wow. My God. This is just fantastic to watch. I almost just want to watch this. I don't even want to. So I'm so entranced by what I'm seeing that I'm just watching as a fan.
Deuce, deuce, 7, all black cards. That's a total whiff for both guys.
It is, but keep in mind, both of them seem to think the other one is weak. So it's not so much about the fact that they've whiffed the board. This is more a hand where they're playing each other. And if they're both weak, that means that they've both whiffed in each other's eyes. And this is really a war of attrition. This is who's going to dig harder to win this hand.
Yeah. Robl won't go away for 35,000. Turn is an ace.
And folks, forget the percentages of this hand. Forget the pot odds for a second. Forget the math. This is a purely psychological poker hand. This is a war between these two guys who both sense that the other one is very weak. And they're both putting each other to the test massively.
All right, I'm on.
All in.
Wow.
Jesus.
What a hand. So much heart.
Oh my God.
We're playing some poker.
Holy,
We're playing some poker.
that was poker.
Wow, the fact that you said all right was the best part. All right. I'm all in.
Or I was just
It's
like,
so brutal. If the river comes anything but an ace, I just fire. I've got nothing too.
I know you had nothing.
But if it comes nothing, I'm all in on the turn. It's only a ace.
You would bet so small.
It was so funny. I was so sure you had nothing when you re-raised Paul. I was like, but then I was sitting on the turn and I was like, this is gonna look like the stupidest hand ever played if I just go all in. And he's like, call.
Wow.
That's so brutal. Thanks for texting me to come back.
We'll be back. Aussie Matt may not. You're watching the Super High Roller Bluff Game. AJ Benza and Nick Shulman bringing you the action from Aria as Aussie Matt indeed has left the table, perhaps unable to suffer the ignominy of losing that gigantic pot to Andrew Robl, who tabled a stone-cold bluff. That was awesome.
AJ, that might have been the greatest no-limit hold'em hand I've ever seen.
Absolutely.
The way that they both just battled with each other.
That was sheer will, and it goes against the grain of what a lot of people think poker is about luck, it's about this. No,
Yeah,
sometimes it's about...
Exactly. You just take that last hand to the Supreme Court or something, or whatever
Yeah.
governmental body is making decisions or saying that poker is a game of luck, it's a gambling game. You show them that hand, and they might sing a different tune. And I know this hand is going on, but I just can't get over that last one.
You know, Kirk made a good point toward the end of that hand.
Kirk made a very intriguing point, actually, and to talk about luck, you know, what Kirk said was if that ace didn't come, he was going to shove the turn.
Right.
And Kirk actually would have taken it down. And look, in hindsight, he should have shoved the turn.
Right.
By not doing so, he gave Robl the opportunity to outplay him. He gave Robl the opportunity to make one of the greatest bluffs I've ever seen. He showed a ton of heart. Robl just showed a little more.
Yeah.
And had position.
Check.
It's tough to beat.
4 on the turn gives Polk a wheel draw as we resume action on this hand, which is kind of an afterthought after what we just saw.
I know, unless these guys go and put a few $100,000 in, we'll just then 7-bet this turn.
Take your 30 grand and get out of here.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But it looks like it was check throw on the flop and on the turn. I think Seiver's betting here.
Yep.
Thinking that often he has the best hand. And Polk not only has a wheel draw, but has ace high. And ace high sometimes stands up on the end in a showdown.
$17,000 call.
And that's exactly what Polk is going for. His ace high could be good, but he could also make a wheel or pair the ace.
Check.
9 on the river misses Doug. And he checks.
Ace high.
Check.
And Scott takes it down. Seiver has great posture.
Scott Seiver is not a man to be beaten with ace high.
Not today.
The number one trick, well, actually, it's not true. You've just proven it wrong. In my mind, the number one trick in No Limit Hold'em is have the best hand in showdown every hand.
So Scott has a tip for No Limit Hold'em, but that's not the only game at which he excels.
I feel I play everything. I've made it a point over my career to play everything. Tournaments, cash games, no limit, any type of game, any type of poker there is. I feel as a professional poker player, it's important to stay ahead of the curve. There's always going to be some game that's the new fad, the new thing that everyone loves to play. And if you're a one-trick pony, at some point it's going to die out. So I wouldn't really call myself either a cash game or a tournament player, just someone that plays poker.
So Nick, you also play a bunch of different games. You cross paths with Scott much or what?
I've actually played a lot of poker with Scott, and he's absolutely right. He plays everything, and it's scary to say, but as good as he is at no-limit tournaments, he's right there in all different forms of poker. He's truly one of the very elite players in the world today, across the board.
Right now, Trickett's got top pair.
And Seiver has ace high and a backdoor straight draw.
7 on the turn.
Is that the reason?
And I don't know if Seiver will go quietly in this hand because he's still ahead of all those different draws that Trickett could have had on the flop. The 4-5s, the flush draws.
Bets 4,500.
The nothings, and he's elected to lead. And this touches upon what he was discussing before about being an overall poker player, because this is a play that's a bit more born from a limit hold'em philosophy. And it's great to be incorporating all different strategies and styles to your no-limit game. And I really like this. However, he's run into trips.
Yeah, exactly.
But I wonder if he has a plan to call Trickett's raise here after leading. He might feel strongly that his ace high is good.
Well, he gives it up. Rare case of bad timing.
It was bad timing by him on the turn, but it was a good fold.
Smiling when he loses, laughing when he wins. Scott Seiver is just happy to be playing cards for a living. 3 are up, 4 are down as Scott Seiver enjoys a profit of nearly $500,000. And with Aussie Matt's exit, the biggest loser is now Doug Polk, stuck about 150 large. And Polk is going to take this hand off, however, with Queen 7 offsuit. Robl has ace king. Opens to 2,500. Patrik has king 9 of hearts. He's been very quiet since joining the table.
He has. He really hasn't had a lot of good hands. Sometimes that happens. Players go what we call card dead.
Card dead. There you go.
And as Kirk and Robl showed earlier, you don't always need a huge hand to play, but nonetheless.
3 betting to 8,500.
And Seiver looks intrigued. And if he continues here, I think it'll be with a 4-bet. I don't think he would flat call with ace-jack here often. I think he would 4-bet or fold, actually.
And he chooses to 4-bet to 24,000.
Maybe Trickett is a little suspicious of all this.
Right.
Raising and re-raising too, but 6 deuce is 6 deuce, and he decides to get out of there.
Yeah.
It's also a bit of posturing. It is Hollywooding, but it's from a strategical background. Trickett, that little hesitation might seep into their minds subconsciously later.
Robl just calls.
And Patrik was the initial 3-better in this hand, and he could elect to call, but only starting the hand with 200,000. I think this is a good discipline laydown.
The Finn knows when he's not wanted. So we're heads up. 8 ace king, top 2 for Robl, and Seiver's crushed with his top pair. Robl checks to the razor.
This could go in a lot of different directions, but not many of them are good for Seiver.
Checks it back.
And part of the reason why you check back, ooh.
Oh, now Seiver has a worse 2 pair, and there are 3 clubs on the board.
And I think Andrew should lead here. There are some hands that Scott would call him with that he has absolutely smashed, like this one. Robl's elected to check, and I wonder if he'll find a check raise here, even though there are some hands that beat him. Robl not only has aces and kings, but he has the king of clubs, so he now has the nut flush draw.
Scott bets 38,000.
But I think Robl's just going to call. And if he does, and the river is a brick, Seiver might very well think that aces and jacks are in the lead.
Robl playing very passively here.
And that could be because they're so deep. And outside of catching a jack, the best river for Scott would actually be a club. because it would allow him to possibly get away from this hand.
4 of spades is a blank. Third check.
I would be really impressed if Seiver found a way to check this. I don't think the way this hand played out that I could check here. I would think not only aces and jacks are good a lot of the time, but that Robl could get very... Man, this guy is awesome.
And Robl shows the winner. And
don't show it, Scott.
Make sure the cameras see this one.
Yeah, he does. It was a great check, but he didn't show it to the table. He showed the restraint, and fantastic check.
I don't even know what that could mean.
It means we both made aces up very early on. Just thought I'd check the flop and the ripper, and that the turn was a club. I'm happy for many things there.
And Robl still thinks Seiver might be lying.
Wow.
yeah. Next time on the Super High Roller Cash Game.
Wow.
Daniel Colman and Scott Seiver play a monster pot thanks to a freezing cold deck.
Mullen.
Scott.
Paul Newey tangles big with Doug Polk.
This is a very interesting hand.
And he gets it all in against Patrik Antonius.
All in. Call.